Hey everybody, Antoni here. I know I was supposed to review the Bayerische Staatsoper production of Wagner's Die Meistersinger von Nuremberg, but unfortunately, the event got cancelled. So in order to compensate for this, I'll be reviewing the 2013 De Nederlands Oper production of Wagner's Meistersinger von Nuremberg, which I saw on YouTube thanks to an uploader by the name of Classical Vault1. So Classical Vault1, if you're watching this video, I hope you enjoy this review and thank you so much for the upload. The conductor was Mark Albrecht. The production was done by David Alden. The set designer was Gideon Davey. The costumes were done by John Morell. The lights were done by Adam Silverman. The chorus master was Thomas Eichler, and the choreographer was Jonathan Lunn. This also marks the second time I have seen this opera, so let's get on to what I thought about the production, costumes, singing, conducting, and chorus. The overall production of this Meistersinger was kind of darkly lit, and quite minimalist, and had very few props. Whenever I think of any production of Meistersinger von Nuremberg, I would love to have loads and loads of historical detail, loads of scenery, loads of castles, loads of trees, loads of rivers, and loads of fine details added into Hans Sachs' cobbler shop. Those type of details I would really love in any Meistersinger production, but with this, it is quite minimalist in its execution. From what I can tell, the entire action from Meistersinger was transported from the Middle Ages all the way up to, I would say, the 1900s or the 1910s, 20 to 30 years after Richard Wagner's passing. So it is quite interesting in its own way, and I really like the final act in which we see all of these gentlemen and ladies coming in with beer being served to them and some food as well, and there is a stage for the master singers to perform, what with Sixtus Beckmesser's rendition of the prize song, in which he is all in gold and is in bed at first and is waking up, and with Walter von Stolzing's real prize song, he is completely decked in a suit of armor and is basically on stage with a picture of a man and woman together, and you could really see just how brilliant it is in its own way. And the costumes were very elegant in their own special ways. However, if there's one little gripe I have with some of the costumes, mainly for the townsfolk, is that you see the townsfolk dressed in masks, like almost similar to that of the Phantom of the Opera, and they are completely in black, and I kind of wonder to myself, do they belong in a more different opera because of those costumes? Because it seems like they do. They feel like they belong in another opera rather than in a production of Meistersinger von Nuremberg. But the costumes of the main cast look absolutely wonderful. I especially love the costumes of David and his assistant apprentices. I really love the costume of Veit Pogner, and Eva Pogner looks very, very lovely in that sky blue dress, and so does Magdalena in her different outfits. Not to mention, Sixtus Beckmesser, who is quite young in this production, is dressed wonderfully, especially in his rendition of the prize song. And what we notice from Walter von Stolzing is that he at first comes in with a leather jacket, looking all decked out, and in the later scene, he is dressed with one part of his armor, mostly from his arm area, and still with his leather jacket and leather attire. And before the end of the opera, we see him in a cream-colored suit. And as the end of the opera rolls, we see him in his full armor. And what's interesting about this production is that this doesn't really end with all the rejoicing. It ends rather bittersweetly as Walter and Eva leave the stage, and the other master singers are in total confusion of what has happened, as Walter pretty much abdicates the Meistersinger title as if to say, well, that is basically his way of responding and basically stating that he's an independent man and he knows what he wants and he knows what defines him. So overall, this production is very interesting with such very wonderful costumes, and it's quite intriguing in its own special way. Now we get to the singers, starting off with Hans Sachs, sung by the American Helden baritone James Johnson. James Johnson has very much specialized in a lot of these huge Helden baritone roles, though at times he also specializes in some bass baritone roles and even the dramatic baritone roles. And just by listening to his voice, even though he has a very fine and dark colored voice, I have to say that just by listening to his voice, I could tell that it has that age and it has that vibrato that is quite associated with various singers who've been singing roles like this for many, many years. The vibrato is not that bad. It's just that by hearing his voice, I could already tell that this guy has been singing all of these big roles for many, many years, and it kind of took a toll on his voice. But he still manages to be a fine musician and a very fine actor, making Hans Sachs a very deadpan character, but not too sweet nor too deadpan, just somewhere in the middle. Oh sure, I would have loved to hear plusher voices singing this role, a la Hans Hotta, Josef Greindl, Karl Ridderbusch, Hans Zoltin, and many other bassos who have sung Hans Sachs, because if you ask me, I always love it when any true basso cantante sings the role of Hans Sachs. So despite the vibrato in some areas due to singing a heavy repertoire for many, many years, I still have to give my hat off to James Johnson for really embodying this role with fine musicianship and pretty fine acting, which doesn't go over the top nor too wooden. He was totally fine in this really iconic Wagnerian role. Then we go to Veit Pogna, the goldsmith, sung by Alistair Miles, and he has a very wonderful basso cantante / basso profondo voice. It's plush, it's cleanly attacked, and it really sounds full and cavernous, which is really ideal for a role like Veit Pogna, even though I would have loved to have deeper, plusher, more cavernous voices a la Giulio Neri, Kurt Burme, Gottlob Frick, Manfred Schenk, Robert Lloyd, and Jaakko Rehenen. I think that Alistair Miles still has a very fine basso instrument, which he uses very, very well, and his singing was very well done with no signs of wobbling, no signs of excessive vibrato, nor any vocal faults. He has a very fine vocal instrument, and his acting was very well done, making Veit Pogna a very lovable father to Eva, and making him quite likable in his own special way. And what more can I say about a gentleman like Alistair Miles? He has a very fine voice, and he did a wonderful job embodying this wonderful Wagnerian basso part. Then we go to Sixtus Beckmesser, sung by the superb Austrian baritone Adrian Erhard. And I really love the color of his voice, which he provides Beckmesser. Let's get on to his acting, as I really, really think it's the highlight of his portrayal of this wonderful character part. He makes Sixtus Beckmesser a very smarmy and very smart-ass character, which I really enjoy, and he doesn't make him so senile, in which we see in a lot of different productions. What I really love about Erhard's characterization of Beckmesser is that he makes him a very smarmy, smart-ass, cynically sarcastic character, and which I really enjoy because he embodied this role very, very well. And it's no surprise that a gentleman like Monsieur Adrian Erhard has been singing a role like this for many years. You could tell that he continues to find a lot of interesting colors, interesting subtexts, and a lot of interesting moments with a character that is so iconic as Sixtus Beckmesser. His singing overall was very fine all throughout, as he has a very fine lyric baritone voice, which he loves to manipulate and uses it very well, making Sixtus Beckmesser a character who is snarky, yet charming in his own special way. And he doesn't go too over the top with his acting either. He makes him calculated yet very snarky, which I definitely love in any baritone who does Sixtus Beckmesser. So kudos to you, Monsieur Erod. You have done a very fabulous job really embodying this iconic Wagnerian baritone role. Then we go to Fritz Kottner, sung by Thomas Ollemans, who does a very fine job really embodying this baker. He has a very gorgeous sounding dramatic baritone voice, and he also specialized in a lot of the lyric baritone roles. And I felt like his voice was absolutely wonderful as Fritz Kottner. He does a very fine job really embodying this character without making him too over the top nor too wooden, and his singing was absolutely wonderful, giving off such very plush dramatic tones, and he just has a very superb sense of musicianship. Then we go to the main hero of this opera, Walter von Stolzing, sung by Roberto Sacca, who I also heard a couple of days ago as Loga from Das Rheingold. What more can I say about a gentleman like Roberto Sacca? He has a very gorgeous and very plush sounding tenor voice, which is no surprise because I have seen this gentleman in a lot of live operas like Bacchus from the Royal Opera House and at the Staatsoper im Stille Theater from Richard Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos, and of course in a couple of radio transmissions being Loga and now this. I really think that his voice is very ideal for Walter von Stolzing. It's lyrical, yet at the same time on the spinto side, which he seems to be specializing these days. Because as I said before, Roberto Sacca was once upon a time a full lyric tenor who specialized in a lot of these very charming lyrical parts, whether they be from the Mozart or the bel canto repertoire. And nowadays, he is specializing in a lot of the spinto tenor repertoire, which basically stretch also into the dramatic tenor repertoire. So he does a very fine job making Walter a very charmingly heroic person, making him very dashing as he has a very dashing and charming stage presence. And he did wonderfully in his prize song, Morgenlicht leuchten in Rosenschein, and he sang that wonderfully. He sang everything wonderfully all throughout the opera. Then we go to David, Hans Sachs's apprentice, sung by Thomas Blondelle, who has a very fine lyric tenor voice, totally ideal for characters like this, which is no surprise because Thomas Blondelle has been specializing in a lot of these lyrical tenor roles, mostly in the Germanic repertoire or mostly in the Mozart repertoire. Roles like Tamino, Ferrando, Belmonte, and Don Ottavio, just to name a few roles he has done before. And I thought that his characterization of David was plucky yet charming, and he really did wonderfully embodying a character like this. He has a superb sense of musicianship, which is no surprise, and he really has a dashing stage presence, and he really knows how to play off of the other characters. Then we go to Eva Pogna, sung by the wonderful Swedish soprano who I absolutely adore, Agneta Eichenholz. And she sang Eva in such a heavenly manner. Sure, at times her acting may not always be of the highest order, but she still gives Eva her charm and her likability. but it's her singing that is the total highlight in an artist like Agneta Eichenholz. She has a very gorgeous and silvery voice, which is no surprise as 2 years ago I also saw her as Zdenka from Richard Strauss's Arabella, and I thought that she did very wonderfully in that role as well. With Eva Pogna, at first I was rather skeptical because Miss Eichenholz basically specializes in a lot of the dramatic coloratura and the more lyric soprano repertoire. So after being introduced to hearing her Eva, I was absolutely blown away at the sheer musicality which she has to offer. Her voice is lyrically gorgeous, it's silvery, it's sweet, yet maintains that plushness. It's creamy on a lot of the registers. It's just so wonderful. And she sounds very young in this role, as to be expected as someone as wonderful as Miss Agneta Eichenholz. Then we go to Eva's best friend slash nurse slash confidant Magdalena, sung by the wonderful mezzo-soprano Sarah Castle, who has a very wonderful stage presence, making her a very concerned best friend to Eva, and her voice was absolutely wonderful. It is a purely focused lyric dramatic mezzo instrument that she uses very well. There is no signs of excessive vibratos, no signs of vocal faults. She has a very gorgeous and very focused instrument, and she sang her role very well with a very superb chemistry which she gives off to Thomas Blondel's David. She was absolutely fantastic in this wonderful mezzo role. Then we go to Pascal Pitti's Kunst Vogelsang, who sings his role very well, helped with a light lyric tenor voice, which she uses very well and manages to really be a fine actor in this role. Matthias van der Veld's Konrad Nachtigall was absolutely well sung with his fine dramatic baritone instrument, making this character come to life. Brian Galliford's Balthazar Zorn was wonderfully sung with his fine lyric tenor voice. Marcel Beekman's Ulrich Eislinger has a very wonderful ring and ping due to his character tenor voice. Reinhard Alessandri's Augustin Moser is wonderfully sung with his fine light lyric tenor voice. Franz Fuselier's Hermann Ortel has a plush sounding bass baritone voice. Tom Heinen's Hans Schwarz was very well sung with his plush sounding bass baritone voice. And of course, Till Feiwitz as both Hans Volz and the Night Watchman with his wonderful plush sounding cavernous basso voice, which he gives life to in both of these roles. So overall, this singing was absolutely wonderful, and special kudos really has to go to Roberto Sacca as Walter von Stolzing, as he gives off such a wonderful interpretation of his prize song, and of course to Agneta Eichenholz's heavenly sung Eva Pogna, who does a very fabulous job all throughout. And the conducting done by Mark Albrecht was very well done, and he has a wonderful sense of musicianship, and he really knows how to conduct Wagner. The same thing I can say about the chorus and orchestra. They did fabulously. So overall, everything went well in this production of Meistersinger von Nuremberg. There may have been some reservations here and there, but the positives more than outweigh the negatives. And this was very much a production complete with a lot of great singers and very fine conducting and a very wonderful orchestra and chorus who did absolutely wonderfully. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in later with another blast into the past with my review of the 2007 audio transmission of Donizetti's Anna Bolena, starring Elena Moschuk, Kwang Chul-yeon, and, of course, Roberto Sacca. So until then, have a great day, everybody.